The 20th woman in 12 months was walking out of Min Jae-sung's penthouse, and this time she was not just crying, she was laughing. Hysterically. The kind of laugh that comes right before a breakdown. The woman turned back to face him one last time and said, "You are impossible. You are not a man. You are a machine." The door slammed. Jae-sung stood alone in his $12 million apartment, surrounded by screens showing stock tickers from around the world, and felt absolutely nothing. He had felt nothing for so long, he had forgotten what feeling even was. But that was about to change. Because in exactly 14 hours, a woman was going to walk into his office and do something no one had ever done before. She was going to look him dead in the eye and tell him the one truth he had spent his entire life running from, and it would destroy everything. But we are getting ahead of ourselves. Min Jae-sung was 35 years old and controlled 45% of South Korea's emerging tech sector through his company, Seoul Industries. Artificial intelligence, robotics, biotech. If it was cutting-edge and profitable, Jae-sung owned it. The business magazines called him a visionary. His competitors called him ruthless. His employees called him the Ice King of Gangnam, though never to his face. And the women in his life? They called him impossible. 20 relationships in 12 months. Some lasted 3 weeks, some lasted 3 days. One lasted exactly 4 hours before the woman faked a family emergency and fled to Busan. The pattern was always the same. They would be drawn to his power, his wealth, his sharp intellect, and then they would meet the real Jae-sung, the man who critiqued the inefficient way they held chopsticks, who scheduled their dates like board meetings, who would stop mid-conversation to answer emails about quarterly projections. His right-hand man, Park Tae-min, had watched them all leave, and that morning as Jae-sung sat in his corner office overlooking the Seoul skyline, Tae-min delivered news that should have been good. Tae-min walked in and said, "Sir, we have found someone for the executive director position." Jae-sung did not look up from his computer. "Background?" Tae-min replied, "Former CIA intelligence analyst, corporate crisis management specialist, track record of fixing impossible situations. But sir, there is something you should know." Jae-sung cut him off. "Send her in at 2 o'clock. Tae-min tried again. "Sir, she is not exactly what we usually—" Jae-sung's tone was final. 2 o'clock, Tae-min. What Tae-min was trying to say with Imani Okafor was nothing like the polished, pedigreed Korean candidates they had interviewed. Nothing like the Seoul National University graduates with perfect resumes and family connections. But Jae-sung would find that out soon enough. At 2:15, Imani walked into his office, 15 minutes late, wearing cargo pants, a designer blazer that had clearly seen better days, and Timberland boots. She had a coffee in one hand and her phone in the other, and she did not bow. In Korean business culture, this was like showing up to a funeral in a swimsuit. Tae-min looked like he might have a stroke. Jae-sung just stared at her. Imani took a sip of her coffee, looked around the office and said, "Your building security is terrible. I bypassed 3 checkpoints getting up here. You might want to fix that before someone actually dangerous figures it out." Tae-min stepped forward, his voice tight with shock. "Miss Okafor, do you understand who you are speaking to?" Jae-sung held up a hand. Tae-min went silent. Jae-sung looked at Imani and said, "You are late." Imani shrugged. "Traffic in Gangnam is statistically worse than Lagos during rush hour. Your city planning infrastructure needs work." Jae-sung leaned back slightly. "You are aware this position has a 94% failure rate?" Imani met his eyes directly. "I am aware you have had 21 people in 18 months. That is not a personnel problem. That is a you problem." The room went completely silent. Tae-min actually gasped. No one spoke to Min Jae-sung like this. No one. But here's where it gets interesting. Instead of having security escort her out, Jae-sung leaned back in his chair and did something he had not done in months. He smiled, just barely. But it was there. Jae-sung gestured to the chair across from him. "Sit down, Miss Okafor." Imani sat. She did not cross her legs politely like a Korean businesswoman. She leaned back, one ankle on her knee, totally relaxed, like she was in her own living room. Jae-sung slid his phone across the desk. "Turn that off. Do not touch it for the next hour." It was a test. He had given it to every candidate. Most people would just power it down and hand it back. Some would argue about privacy. One woman had actually cried, thinking it was a trick. Imani picked up the phone, removed the battery, pulled out the SIM card and handed both back separately. She looked at Jae-sung and said, "If you cannot function without a phone for 1 hour, you do not run your empire. It runs you. That is your real problem, by the way. You mistake control for connection. You manage things instead of leading people, and that is why everyone leaves." Jae-sung stared at her for a long moment. Then he said, "You are hired." Imani raised an eyebrow. "I have not heard the offer yet." Jae-sung's voice was certain. "Name your price." And that is how Imani Okafor became the executive director of operations for Hansol Industries. But what she was really about to become was the first person in Min Jae-sung's entire adult life who refused to be afraid of him. The contract negotiation took 3 hours. Most people would have taken whatever Jae-sung offered and counted themselves lucky. Imani treated it like a hostile merger. Imani started with her demands. "I want 4 times whatever you paid the last person, plus 2% equity in Hansol Industries." Taemin nearly choked. "Miss Okafor, that is completely—" Jae-sung interrupted. "Done." Imani was not finished. "I need decision-making authority. I do not ask permission to do my job. If I think something needs to happen, it happens," Jae-sung countered, "within reason." Imani shook her head. "No, full authority. You hired me to fix your problems. Let me fix them." Jae-sung studied her carefully. "You understand what this job actually entails? You will manage my entire operation, schedule, public appearances, crisis management. You will be available 24 hours a day. You will travel globally with 3 hours' notice. And for certain high-profile events, you will need to appear publicly as my romantic partner." Imani nodded. "Fake relationship for business purposes. I can do that." Jae-sung continued. "You will need to dress appropriately for Korean business culture." Imani cut him off. "Stop right there. I will dress professionally. But I am not your Korean drama fantasy. I do not wear heels I cannot run in. I do not wear skirts I cannot fight in. And I do not bow to anyone who has not earned it." The room went silent again. Taemin looked like he wanted to crawl under the desk. But Jae-sung just nodded slowly. "You are going to be a problem, are you not?" Imani smiled for the first time. The best kind. They signed the contract. And Jae-sung had no idea he had just hired the woman who would completely destroy his carefully controlled life. If you are enjoying this story so far, do me a favor and hit that like button, because what happens next is absolutely wild, and you are going to want to remember where you heard it first. Trust me on this. The first test came exactly 1 week later. Jae-sung had a crucial dinner meeting with 3 of the most powerful chaebol families in South Korea. Old money, traditional values, the kind of people who still arranged marriages for their children and expected everyone to know their place in the hierarchy. These families controlled the construction, shipping, and telecommunications industries. If Jae-sung could close this deal, Hansol Industries would expand into infrastructure. 600 billion won was on the table, and Imani was expected to fail. Taemin briefed her the day before. "These people are particular, very traditional. They will be judging everything. Your clothes, your manners, the way you hold your chopsticks, and they will be especially curious about you." Imani looked at him directly. "You mean because I am black?" Taemin shifted uncomfortably. "I am just saying, perhaps you should prepare for some difficult questions." Imani's voice was steady. "I have been preparing for difficult questions my entire life. I will be fine." She showed up to the dinner at the exclusive Cheongdam-dong private club, wearing something no one expected. A custom-made modern hanbok, traditional Korean dress, but redesigned with contemporary cuts and bold fabric. It was respectful and rebellious at the same time. It said, "I understand your culture, but I am not erasing myself to fit into it." The chaebol families were already seated when Jae-sung and Imani arrived. 3 patriarchs, 3 wives, and the heir apparent to the telecommunications empire, a man named Kim Young-soo, who had been trying to compete with Jae-sung for years. The matriarch of the construction family, Mrs. Choi, looked Imani up and down with barely concealed disdain. Mrs. Choi said in Korean, "How exotic! Where did you find her, Jae-sung-si?" Imani responded in perfect formal Korean, which she had spent 72 hours learning. "He found me in New York, where I was closing a merger for a Fortune 500 company. It is lovely to meet you, Mrs. Choi." Mrs. Choi's eyebrows shot up. She had not expected Imani to speak Korean. let alone with proper formal grammar. The dinner proceeded with typical Korean business protocol. Soju was poured. Pleasantries were exchanged. The men discussed industry trends while the women were expected to smile politely and stay quiet. Imani did neither. When the telecommunications patriarch mentioned concerns about Hanseol's AI development, Imani jumped in without hesitation. Those concerns are based on outdated data from Q2. Our current models show a 37% improvement in processing speed with 40% less energy consumption. I can send you the white papers if you would like to review them. The entire table went quiet. Kim Young-soo, the heir who hated Jae-sung, saw an opportunity. He said with a condescending smile, "It is refreshing to see such enthusiasm, but perhaps business talk is better left to those with more experience in our market." Imani looked directly at him. "I have 8 years of intelligence analysis experience in emerging markets across 4 continents. How many years do you have running a profitable company without your father's name attached to it?" Jae-sung had to hide his smile behind his soju glass. Kim Young-soo's face turned red. "I do not think you understand how things work in Korea." Imani's voice remained calm. "I understand perfectly. You are trying to embarrass me because you are threatened by Jae-sung's success, and you think I am an easy target. But here is what you do not understand. I am not here to make you comfortable. I am here to close a 600 billion won deal. So you can either be part of that, or you can keep making snide comments and watch your family's telecommunications division fall another 12% this quarter." The table went completely silent. Then Mrs. Choi started laughing. Actually laughing. She looked at Jae-sung and said, "I like her. She has spirit. Much better than that boring woman you brought last time." The telecommunications patriarch nodded. "The numbers she mentioned, send those white papers. We will review them." The construction patriarch raised his soju glass. "To new partnerships." The deal was done, but Kim Young-soo was not finished. His wife, desperate to regain face for her husband, turned to Imani with a syrupy smile. Kim's wife said loudly enough for everyone to hear, "It must be so interesting how someone like you ended up in such a prestigious position. Did you know Jae-sung Si from before? Or—" The implication was clear and disgusting. Imani set down her chopsticks very carefully. When she spoke, her voice was quiet, but every word cut like glass. Imani looked directly at Kim's wife. "I ended up in this position the same way you did. I impressed the right person. The difference is, I did it with my skills instead of my family name. Or were you under the impression that your husband married you for your sparkling personality?" The woman's mouth fell open. Kim Young-soo stood up. "How dare you?" The telecommunications patriarch said sharply, "Sit down. She is right. Your wife was out of line." Someone at a nearby table had recorded the whole exchange on their phone. By the next morning, it was all over Korean social media. The hashtag Queen of Gangnam was trending. The comments were split between admiration and racist backlash, but one thing was clear. Imani Okafor had just announced herself to Seoul's business world, and she had done it by refusing to shrink. Most people stop here and think that is the end of the story. Young woman puts arrogant people in their place, gets respect, everyone lives happily ever after. But what happened next made everything that came before look like a warm-up. The real story was just beginning. Over the next 4 weeks, Imani did not just meet expectations, she shattered them. In week 1, she cut 60% of Jae-sung's meetings. She told him bluntly, "Half your calendar is performative nonsense. Men who want FaceTime so they can tell their friends they met with you. I eliminated them. You are welcome." She also fired 2 executives, one for embezzling, one for sexual harassment that HR had been ignoring for months. She confronted Jae-sung directly. "You have a culture problem. People think they can get away with anything because you are too busy to notice. That ends now." In week 2, she uncovered a corporate spy. A senior engineer was selling Hanseol's AI patents to a competitor. Imani used her CIA training to trace encrypted communications, documented everything, and presented Jae-sung with a legal strategy that would not only get the engineer arrested, but also sue the competitor into bankruptcy. Jae-sung asked, genuinely impressed, "How did you find this?" Imani explained, "I know how to read people." He was spending more money than his salary allowed, bought a new car, started taking international trips, Classic signs. I just followed the trail. In week 3, a rival company tried to acquire Hansol's biotech subsidiary in a hostile takeover. They had been planning it for months, building a war chest, lining up investors. Imani found financial irregularities in their books in 48 hours. Tax evasion, offshore accounts, falsified revenue reports. She presented it to their CEO with a simple message that she delivered herself. Withdraw your offer, or this goes to the Financial Supervisory Service tomorrow. They withdrew. By week 4, the entire company knew her as the ghost. She saw everything. She struck from nowhere. Executives who had been coasting for years suddenly found themselves held accountable. People who had been undermining Jae-sung found themselves looking for new jobs. Tae-min told Jae-sung in private, "She is terrifying, and she is invaluable. Do not lose her." But it was week 4 when something shifted between Jae-sung and Imani, something neither of them saw coming. It was 11:47 at night. Jae-sung was pulling another all-nighter in his office, preparing for a product launch. He had been surviving on coffee and energy drinks for 3 days straight. His eyes burned, his head pounded. But he kept working because that is what he always did. The office door opened. Imani walked in carrying something that made Jae-sung stop typing. Food. Real food. Not delivery. Homemade jollof rice and fried plantains in a ceramic container. Imani set it on his desk. "You need to eat." Jae-sung stared at it. "This is not in your job description." Imani replied simply, "Neither is watching you develop an ulcer, but here we are." He picked up the fork, tasted it. It was the first home-cooked meal he had had in months, maybe years. The rice was perfectly spiced. The plantains were sweet and crispy. For a moment, he forgot about the product launch entirely. Jae-sung said quietly, "This is good. Thank you." Imani sat down across from him. "You are going to burn out if you keep this up." Jae-sung responded automatically, "I have been working like this for 15 years. Imani shot back, "That is not the flex you think it is." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Jae-sung asked something he had never asked any employee before. A personal question. Jae-sung looked at her. "Why did you really leave the CIA?" Imani's expression shifted. Her walls came up. "That is not relevant to my job here." Jae-sung pressed gently. "I am not asking as your employer. I am asking as someone who wants to understand you." Imani looked at him for a long time. Then she sighed. Imani's voice became quiet. "I had a younger sister, Amara. She was 19, smart, funny, full of dreams about becoming a doctor. One night she was walking home from her shift at the community center in Brooklyn. Wrong place, wrong time. Drive-by shooting. She died on the sidewalk before the ambulance came." Jae-sung set down his fork. "Imani, I am so sorry." Imani continued, her voice steady but pained. "I joined the CIA because I thought I could stop things like that from happening. Thought I could protect people. But after 8 years of watching powerful men make decisions that got innocent people killed and calling it national security, I realized I was just part of a different machine. At least in corporate, the casualties are just bank accounts." Jae-sung asked carefully, "You think I am one of those men?" Imani shook her head. "No, I think you are too afraid to care about anything, so you cannot become one. That is worse." The words hit Jae-sung like a punch to the chest, because they were true. Jae-sung said finally, "The product launch is in 5 hours. Help me finish this presentation." Imani stood up. "Fine, but you are eating while we work." They worked until 4 in the morning, side by side. Jae-sung would write a slide, Imani would tear it apart and make it better. They argued about data visualization, debated marketing angles, laughed at terrible corporate jargon. It was the first time Jae-sung had truly collaborated with anyone in years. The first time work felt like something other than solitary grinding. When they finally finished, the Seoul skyline was starting to lighten with dawn. Jae-sung said, "You should go home, get some sleep." Imani replied, "So should you." But neither of them moved. Jae-sung asked softly, "Can I ask you something?" Imani smiled slightly. "You are going to anyway." Jae-sung's voice was genuine. "Why are you not afraid of me? Everyone else is." Imani looked at him directly. "Because I have survived worse than you. I grew up in one of the hardest neighborhoods in Brooklyn. I watched my sister die. I have been in war zones where people tried to kill me. Your coldness?" She shook her head. "That is just armor, and I have worn armor too. So no, Jae-sung, you do not scare me. You never could." Something cracked open in Jae-sung's chest, something he had kept locked away for so long he had forgotten it was there. Jae-sung said quietly, "Thank you for the food and for the help." Imani smiled. "Do not make it a habit." But she was smiling. After she left, Jae-sung sat alone in his office and realized something terrifying. He was starting to feel again, and it was all because of her. Before we continue, if you are invested in this story, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, because what happens between these two next is going to test everything they think they know about themselves, and you will not want to miss a single moment. 2 weeks later, Jae-sung and Imani were on a private jet to Dubai, a crucial 12-hour flight to negotiate a partnership with Middle Eastern investors. It was the first time they had been truly alone for an extended period. The tension was unbearable. Since that night in the office, something had shifted. Every meeting felt charged. Every accidental touch lasted a second too long. They were circling each other like two predators who could not decide whether to fight or something else entirely. On the plane, Jae-sung tried to focus on contract reviews. Imani was reading a book on behavioral economics. The silence stretched between them. Then the plane hit severe turbulence, the kind that makes overhead compartments rattle and sends drinks flying. Jae-sung gripped his armrest. Imani did not even look up from her book. Jae-sung asked, "You are not afraid of flying?" Imani said calmly, "I have been in helicopters taking fire over Kandahar. Turbulence does not make my top 10 list of scary things." Jae-sung's curiosity was piqued. "You were in Afghanistan?" Imani replied shortly. "2 deployments, intelligence operations. I do not talk about it." Jae-sung set down his papers. "You know everything about my life, every detail. I know almost nothing about yours. That is not fair." Imani did not look up. "Fair was not in our contract." Jae-sung pushed, "I am not talking about the contract." Imani finally looked up from her book. "Then what are you talking about?" Jae-sung met her eyes. "I am talking about the fact that I cannot stop thinking about you, and I think you cannot stop thinking about me either." The air in the cabin suddenly felt very thin. Imani said quietly, "Do not." Jae-sung leaned forward. "Do not what?" Imani's voice was firm. "Do not confuse professional respect with something else. Do not mistake me understanding you for me wanting you." Jae-sung said simply, "You are lying." Imani's eyes flashed. "Excuse me?" Jae-sung explained, "You are lying, and you are not very good at it. Your tells are obvious. You touch your necklace when you are uncomfortable. You look away when you are hiding something, and right now you are doing both." Imani's hand dropped from her necklace. "You are my boss. This conversation is inappropriate." Jae-sung said something that shocked even himself. "Then quit." Imani blinked. "What?" Jae-sung repeated. "Quit. If the only thing stopping this is the job, then quit. I will triple your severance, give you recommendations that will get you any position in the world. Just quit so I can stop pretending I do not feel this." Imani stared at him. "You are serious." Jae-sung's voice was raw. "I have never been more serious about anything in my life." Imani shook her head. "You are being ridiculous. We have known each other for 6 weeks. Jae-sung leaned forward. 6 weeks where you have been the only person who sees me as something other than a walking company. 6 weeks where I have actually felt human for the first time in years." He paused. "Tell me you do not feel anything. Look me in the eye and tell me this is all professional for you." Imani opened her mouth, closed it, looked away. Jae-sung sat back. "That is what I thought." The rest of the flight was silent, but the silence was screaming. In Dubai, the business meetings went perfectly. Imani was brilliant, as always. They closed the deal, shook hands, made toasts, played their roles flawlessly. But back at the hotel, at 2 in the morning, there was a knock on Imani's suite door. She opened it to find Jae-sung standing there, still in his dress shirt and pants, looking completely undone. Jae-sung said urgently, "I cannot sleep. I keep thinking about what you said on the plane, about your sister, about why you do this, about everything you have survived, and I cannot stop thinking that you are the strongest person I have ever met, and I—" He stopped, took a breath. "I have never wanted anyone the way I want you, and I do not know what to do with that." Imani should have closed the door, should have reminded him about professional boundaries, should have protected herself. Instead, she heard herself say, "This is a mistake." Jae-sung said quietly, "I know." Imani continued, "We cannot come back from this. Jae-sung repeated, I do not care. Imani whispered his name. Jae-sung. He stepped forward, close enough that she could feel the heat coming off him. Tell me to leave. You not want this. Tell me to leave, and I will never bring it up again. Imani looked up at him, at this man who terrified everyone else, but who was standing in front of her completely vulnerable, completely open, completely hers for the taking. Imani whispered, I cannot. Jae-sung asked softly, Cannot what? Imani's voice broke, Cannot tell you to leave. That is all it took. The kiss was desperate. Months of tension exploding all at once. They barely made it to the bedroom. Clothes fell like casualties of war. And when they finally came together, it was with an intensity that left them both gasping. But here is what made it different from just a physical encounter. Here is what neither of them expected. Jae-sung was vulnerable. Completely, utterly vulnerable. He whispered her name like a prayer, held her like she might disappear, let her see every wall come down. And Imani, who had kept her armor on through everything, felt hers crack too. Afterwards, they lay tangled together, both terrified of what they had just done. Imani said quietly, This changes everything. Jae-sung replied, I know. Imani's voice was small. I do not know how to do this. Be someone's person. I have been alone my entire life. Jae-sung pulled her closer. So have I. We will figure it out. But when he woke up at 6 a.m., Imani was already dressed, already working on her laptop, already rebuilding her walls. Jae-sung said carefully, We need to talk about last night. Imani did not look up. Last night was a stress response. It cannot happen again. Jae-sung sat up. Imani cut him off. It compromises everything we have built. The company, our working relationship, everything. Jae-sung asked, What if I want it to happen again? Finally, she looked at him. Then you will need to find a new executive director, because I will not be your convenient experiment in feelings. I will not be the woman you try on for size and discard when you realize you prefer being alone. Jae-sung protested, That is not what this is. Imani's voice cracked slightly. Is it not? You have had 20 women walk away from you, Jae-sung. 20. What makes you think I will be any different? What makes you think you will not wake up in 3 months and realize I am just another person who cannot handle you? Jae-sung said firmly, Because you already handle me, every single day. You are the only one who has ever been able to. Imani shook her head. I have a car coming to take me to the airport. I will see you back in Seoul. She left. And Jae-sung sat in that Dubai hotel room, staring at the empty space where she had been, and realized he had just made the biggest mistake of his life. Not sleeping with her, but letting her walk away. Back in Seoul, the next 3 weeks were torture. Imani was hyper-professional, all business. She would send emails instead of talking in person. Keep meetings short and focused. Leave the office the moment her work was done. The warmth that had been building between them was gone, replaced by cold efficiency. Jae-sung was losing his mind. He would catch himself staring at her during meetings. He would find excuses to call her into his office just to be near her. He started making mistakes, which he never did. Quarterly projections dropped. He snapped at executives. Lost a minor deal because he could not focus. Min finally cornered him. Sir, whatever happened in Dubai, you need to fix it. You are both miserable, and it is affecting the company. Jae-sung said helplessly. She will not talk to me. Min pointed out, Since when has that stopped you from getting what you want? That night, Jae-sung summoned Imani to his penthouse. The message said it was to review Q3 strategy. They both knew it was a lie. She showed up at 8 p.m., armed with a tablet and printed reports. Armor, Imani said briskly. Let us make this quick. I have an early meeting tomorrow. Jae-sung said flatly, I am done pretending. Imani looked up. Pretending what? Jae-sung's voice was intense. That Dubai did not happen, that it did not mean anything, that I can just go back to seeing you as my employee and nothing else. Imani tried to stay firm. Jae-sung, we agreed. Jae-sung interrupted. You agreed. I never agreed. I just let you walk away because I was scared. But I am done being scared. Imani argued, This is not about fear. This is about being realistic. You do not do relationships. You have proven that 20 times over. Jae-sung said honestly, I did not do relationships because I never met anyone worth changing for. He walked toward her slowly. But then you showed up, and you did not fear me, did not need me, did not want anything from me except honesty, and for the first time in my life I wanted to be better than I am. Imani said weakly. Stop. Jae-sung continued. You feel this too. I know you do. Imani tried again. What I feel does not matter. We work together. We cannot. Jae-sung said something shocking. Then I will fire you, right now. Consider yourself fired. Now we do not work together. Now what is your excuse? Imani protested. You are being ridiculous. Jae-sung's voice was raw. I am being desperate. I have never been desperate for anything in my life, never wanted anything I could not control or acquire. But I want you, Imani, and I cannot control this, cannot strategize my way through it, cannot make it fit into a business model. I just want you. Imani whispered, You will destroy me, Jae-sung said firmly. Then we will destroy each other. I do not care anymore. Imani tried to resist. Jae-sung. Jae-sung challenged her. Tell me you feel nothing. Look me in the eyes and tell me that night in Dubai meant nothing, that you do not think about it, that you do not want this too. Tell me, and I will never bring it up again. Imani looked up at him, opened her mouth to say the words that would end this, and could not. Imani admitted, I cannot. Jae-sung pressed, Cannot what? Imani's voice broke. Cannot tell you it meant nothing. Cannot tell you I do not think about it. Cannot tell you I do not want this. She paused. But I am terrified, Jae-sung, because everyone I have ever cared about has left or died or let me down, and I do not know how to be someone's person without losing myself. Jae-sung said softly, You will not lose yourself. You are too strong for that. You are the strongest person I have ever met. Imani shook her head. You do not know that, Jae-sung insisted. Yes, I do, because you have already survived worse than me. You said it yourself. He kissed her then, slowly this time, deliberately, asking permission with every movement. And Imani, who had kept her armor on through war zones and tragedy and a lifetime of being underestimated, finally let it fall. They made it to his bedroom. But this time was different from Dubai. This time, when Jae-sung held her face and asked her to tell him she felt this too, Imani did not deflect. Imani whispered, I feel it, and it terrifies me. Jae-sung said gently, Good, we will be terrified together. They fell asleep, tangled together, and in the morning, for the first time in her life, Imani did not run. But the universe was not done testing them yet. At 10 a.m., Jae-sung and Imani were in his office having an actual conversation about what they were doing, what this meant, how to navigate it, when Taemin burst through the door. Taemin said urgently, Sir, we have a situation in the lobby. Jae-sung said without looking away from Imani, Handle it. Taemin insisted, It is Lee So-yeon, and she is making a scene. Jae-sung's jaw tightened. Lee So-yeon, his ex-girlfriend from 8 months ago, daughter of a powerful chaebol chairman, perfect pedigree, perfect manners, perfect everything except the ability to handle who Jae-sung actually was. Imani stood up. I will take care of it. Jae-sung protested, You do not have to. Imani said firmly, I know, but I want to. In the lobby, So-yeon was holding court. Designer handbag, Chanel suit, hair and makeup perfect, and she was talking loudly enough for everyone to hear. So-yeon was saying to the receptionist, I just think it is important that someone warn her. Min Jae-sung is not the kind of man who commits. He goes through women like he goes through quarterly reports. Imani walked up. Is there something I can help you with? So-yeon turned, looked Imani up and down with barely concealed disdain. Oh, you are the assistant. I was hoping to speak with someone who actually matters. Imani said calmly, I am the executive director, and you are trespassing, so either state your business or leave. So-yeon replied coldly, My business is with Jae-sung. We have history. Imani corrected her, had history. Past tense, as in over, as in he chose to end things with you 8 months ago. So-yeon's smile was venomous. You think you are special, you think you are different, you are just a phase. He will get bored of your novelty, and then you will be exactly where I was. Except when he discarded me, at least I had my dignity. What will you have? Imani stepped closer. If you are so over him, why are you here? Why do you care who he is with? Seems to me like you are the one who could not handle him. You are the one who walked away because his standards were too high. And now you are jealous because he found someone who can actually meet them. So-yeon snapped. How dare you? Imani said firmly. I dare because I am not afraid of you. I am not afraid of your family's money or your social connections or your passive-aggressive insults. You want to know what I will have? I will have him. Actually have him. Not the version he performed for you. The real person. Because unlike you, I do not need him to be smaller so I can feel bigger. So-yeon hissed. Jae-sung needs someone who understands Korean society, not someone playing dress-up in our culture. Imani said quietly, I do not play dress-up. I rebuilt his entire operation. I closed deals you could not even understand. I earned my place here. What have you done except be born with the right last name? So-yeon's face turned red. You think he loves you? He is incapable of love. He is a machine. A voice came from behind them. Jae-sung had appeared, looking like he was barely containing his anger. Jae-sung said coldly, No, I was a machine when I was with you. Because you never wanted to know the actual person. You wanted the status, the image, the performance. But Imani sees me, actually sees me, and I would rather be real with her than perfect with you. He turned to So-yeon. Leave, do not come back, do not contact me. We are done. We were done 8 months ago, and we are done now. Then he took Imani's hand. In front of the entire lobby, in front of the security cameras that would definitely leak this to the press, in front of everyone, Jae-sung said to Imani, My office, now. Once they were alone, Jae-sung turned to her and said, I am sorry you had to deal with that. Imani shrugged. I can handle mean girls. I grew up in Brooklyn, remember? Jae-sung clarified. That is not what I mean. I am sorry that being with me means dealing with jealous exes and judgmental society and people who will question why we are together. Imani asked directly, Are we together? Like, actually together? Because we have not exactly defined this. Jae-sung pulled her close. I want to be, really be, not as employer and employee, not as some secret thing we hide, as partners, equals, people who are choosing each other. Imani admitted, I do not know how to do this. I do not know how to be someone's girlfriend or partner or whatever. I have survived alone my entire life. Jae-sung said, So have I. We will figure it out together, or we will fail together. But I would rather fail with you than succeed with anyone else. Imani smiled slightly. That is the most romantic thing anyone has ever said to me, and also the most depressing. Jae-sung laughed. Actually laughed. So is that a yes? Imani replied, It is a let us try. Let us try and see if we can actually do this without destroying each other. Jae-sung said, I will take it. They kissed. And for the first time in both their lives, they felt like maybe, just maybe, they had found someone who could handle them. But here is where most people think the story ends. Two broken people find each other, fall in love, overcome obstacles, live happily ever after. Except life does not work that way. And what happened next would test everything they thought they knew about love, sacrifice, and what they were truly willing to give up for each other. Because 3 months into their relationship, on a Tuesday afternoon while Imani was presenting quarterly projections to the board, her phone started buzzing. Once, twice, 12 times in a row. She glanced down, a Brooklyn number she had not seen in years. Her blood went cold. She excused herself from the meeting, walked into the hallway, called the number back with shaking hands. A voice she barely recognized answered. Her father. They had not spoken in 3 years. Her father said without preamble, Your mother had a stroke. She is in the ICU at Kings County Hospital. The doctors say the next 48 hours are critical. You need to come home. The words hit Imani like a physical blow. The hallway seemed to tilt. Imani managed to say, I will be on the next flight. She hung up, stood there for a moment, trying to breathe, trying to process. Her mother, the woman who had raised her alone after her father left, the woman who had worked 3 jobs to keep food on the table, the woman who had held Imani when Amara died. She was dying. Imani walked back into the meeting room. Everyone looked up. Jae-sung took one look at her face and stood immediately. Imani said to the room, her voice surprisingly steady, I apologize, but I need to leave. There is a family emergency. The board members murmured sympathetically, but Imani barely heard them. She was already mentally calculating flights, hospital protocols, how long she could be away. Jae-sung followed her out of the room. Once they were alone in his office, he turned to her. Jae-sung asked gently, What happened? Imani's voice was flat. My mother had a stroke. I need to get to New York, now. Jae-sung did not hesitate. I will come with you. Imani shook her head automatically. You cannot. You have the Samsung merger finalization on Thursday, 800 billion won, 6 months of negotiation. You cannot just walk away. Jae-sung said firmly, I do not care about the Samsung deal. Imani looked at him, really looked at him. And for a moment she wanted to say yes. Wanted to let him come. Wanted to not face this alone. But then reality crashed back in. Imani said, Jae-sung, that deal is the biggest in Hanseol's history. Your board is already questioning your judgment after you went public with our relationship. If you walk away from this, they will vote you out. You know they will. Jae-sung repeated, more forcefully, I do not care. You need me. I am coming with you. And he did. 4 hours later, they were on a plane to New York. Jae-sung sat beside her, holding her hand as she stared out the window, silent and terrified. Imani had not cried yet, had not broken down, was holding everything together with sheer force of will. But Jae-sung saw the cracks forming. When they landed at JFK 13 hours later, exhaustion and fear had caught up with her. Jae-sung hailed a cab, gave the driver the hospital address, pulled Imani against him in the back seat. Imani said quietly, You should go back. You still have time to make the Samsung meeting. Jae-sung said simply, No. Imani tried again. Jae-sung, you are going to lose 800 billion won because of me. Jae-sung looked at her. Then I lose 800 billion won. Money is replaceable. You are not. Imani felt something break inside her chest. You are going to regret this. Jae-sung said firmly, The only thing I would regret is leaving you to face this alone. At Kings County Hospital, Imani's father was in the waiting room. He was a tall man, graying at the temples, with the same sharp eyes as Imani. When he saw her, his face crumpled with a relief that made him look 10 years older. Her father said, Thank God you came. Then he saw Jae-sung behind her. His expression hardened immediately, suspicion and hostility replacing relief. Her father asked, Who is this? Imani said quietly, This is Min Jae-sung, my partner. Her father looked Jae-sung up and down with open disdain. Your partner, I see. Before anyone could say more, a doctor in blue scrubs approached them. Dr. Martinez. She looked tired. Dr. Martinez said, Miss Okafor, I am glad you are here. Your mother's condition is critical. She suffered a massive ischemic stroke. There is significant brain damage to the left hemisphere. We have stabilized her for now, but the next 72 hours will determine whether she survives. Imani felt the words hit her like blows. Brain damage. 72 hours. Survive. Imani asked, her voice barely above a whisper, Can I see her? Dr. Martinez nodded. Immediate family only, one at a time. Imani went in alone. The ICU was bright and sterile and full of beeping machines. Her mother lay in the bed, so small she barely made a shape under the white hospital blanket. Tubes ran from her arms. A ventilator breathed for her. Monitors tracked every heartbeat. Imani sat in the chair beside the bed, took her mother's hand. It was cold. Imani said, Mom, it is me, Imani. I am here now. I am so sorry it took me so long. I am so sorry. Her mother did not respond, did not move. Just the steady beep of machines and the mechanical whoosh of the ventilator. Imani sat there for 20 minutes, holding her mother's hand, praying to a God she was not sure she believed in anymore. Bargaining. Begging. Please, please do not take her too. I cannot lose anyone else. When she finally came back out to the waiting room, her father was glaring at Jae-sung, who stood calmly by the window, looking out at the Brooklyn skyline. Her father pulled Imani aside the moment he saw her. Her father said in a harsh whisper, We need to talk, alone. They stepped into a small consultation room. Her father wasted no time. Her father said bluntly, What are you doing with him? Imani replied, Tired already. I told you, he is my partner. Her father shook his head. He is Korean and rich, and he probably sees you as some kind of exotic experiment. You think he is going to marry you? Take you home to his family? You are fooling yourself, Imani. Imani felt anger flare through the grief. You do not know him. Her father scoffed. I know men like him. I have dealt with them my whole life, building my business. They use people like us and then discard us when we are no longer useful, when being with you becomes inconvenient. Imani said quietly, Like the way you used Mom? Like the way you discarded us when your mistress became more convenient? Her father flinched. That is not fair. Imani continued, her voice shaking now. You do not get to judge my choices. You do not get to show up now and pretend you care about protecting me. Where were you when Amara died? Where were you when I joined the military because I could not stand to be in this city anymore? Where were you for the last 10 years of my life? Her father said defensively, I am here now. Imani laughed bitterly. Because Mom is dying, not because you actually care about me. You want to know the difference between you and Jae-sung? He flew 13 hours to be here with me. He is sacrificing the biggest business deal of his career to sit in this hospital. What have you ever sacrificed for anyone but yourself? Her father opened his mouth, closed it, had no answer. Imani walked out. The next 3 days blurred together into an endless nightmare of waiting rooms and vending machine coffee and doctors giving updates that never contained good news. Her mother's condition did not improve. It did not get worse either. She just existed in that terrible limbo between life and death, machines keeping her body functioning while her brain remained silent. Imani barely left the hospital. She slept in the waiting room chairs when exhaustion finally overtook her. Ate whatever Jae-sung brought her, though she tasted nothing, existed in a fog of grief and fear. And Jae-sung stayed, every single minute. He did not complain about the uncomfortable chairs or the terrible hospital coffee or the fact that he was wearing the same clothes he had worn on the plane because neither of them had thought to pack a bag. He just stayed. On the third day, Taemin called. Imani was asleep in the waiting room, her head on Jae-sung's shoulder. He carefully extracted himself and walked to a quiet corner to take the call. Taemin's voice was tight with stress. Sir, the Samsung deal is falling apart. They are threatening to pull out completely if you do not return for the signing tomorrow morning Seoul time. That is in 8 hours. We are talking about losing 800 billion won. Jae-sung looked back at Imani, asleep in the chair, dark circles under her eyes, her face drawn with worry. Jae-sung said quietly, Let it fall apart. Taemin protested. Sir, this is the biggest deal in Hanseol's history. The board is already furious that you left. If you lose this deal, they are going to call an emergency meeting. They might vote you out as CEO. Jae-sung said, Then they vote me out. Taemin's voice rose slightly. Sir, with all due respect, you cannot just throw away everything you have built for. He stopped himself. Jae-sung said quietly, dangerously, For what, Taemin? Say it. Taemin backpedaled. I did not mean. Jae-sung interrupted. Tell the board I will reschedule when I am able. If Samsung cannot wait, they can find another partner. If the board wants to remove me, they can try. But I am not leaving New York, not until I know she is okay. Is that clear? Taemin sighed. Yes, sir. Crystal clear. Jae-sung hung up, but Imani had woken up, had heard the entire conversation from across the waiting room. She stood and walked over to him. Imani said quietly, You need to go back. Jae-sung shook his head. I am not leaving you. Imani's voice was firm. Jae-sung, you just heard Taemin. You are going to lose 800 billion won and possibly your company. Because of me. That is not sustainable. Jae-sung said, This is not just any crisis. Your mother is fighting for her life. Imani continued, her voice starting to shake. And what about the next crisis? And the one after that? What happens when you resent me for all the deals you lost, all the opportunities you missed? What happens when you wake up one day and realize I am not worth it? Jae-sung looked at her like she had just stabbed him. Do you really think that little of me? You think I would resent you for this? Imani's voice broke. I do not know what to think anymore. Everything is falling apart. My mother is dying. My father hates you. Your company is hemorrhaging money because you are here with me. And I cannot. She stopped, tears streaming down her face now. I cannot be the reason you destroy everything you have built. Jae-sung stepped forward, took her face in his hands. Imani, look at me. She did. Jae-sung said, You are not destroying anything. Before you, I had an empire and nothing else. No purpose beyond profit. No life beyond work. No reason to care about anything. You gave me all of that back. You made me feel human again. And if I have to lose every deal, every partnership, every one I have ever made to keep you in my life, I will do it without a second thought. Imani shook her head. You say that now. But what about in 6 months? A year? What happens when the reality sets in? When you add up everything you gave up, you are going to resent me, and I cannot. Her voice broke completely. I cannot watch you slowly start to hate me. Jae-sung said fiercely, I could never hate you. You. You are the best thing that has ever happened to me. Imani pulled away from him. You do not understand. Everyone I have ever loved has left me, or died, or let me down. My sister, my father, and now my mother is dying, and there is nothing I can do to stop it. I am watching her slip away, and I am powerless. Just like I was powerless when Amara died, just like I've been powerless my whole life. Jae-sung said gently, "You are not powerless. You are here. You are fighting. You are—" Imani interrupted, her voice rising. "I am terrified, Jae-sung. I am terrified that I am going to lose my mother. I am terrified that I am going to lose you. I am terrified that I am going to destroy your life just by being in it, and I do not know how to make any of this okay." Jae-sung pulled her into his arms. "Then do not make it okay. Just let me be here with you. Let me help carry this." Imani broke down, actually broke down, sobbing into his chest, all the grief and fear and exhaustion pouring out of her in great, heaving gasps. And Jae-sung held her, just held her while she fell apart. They stood like that for a long time. In a quiet corner of a Brooklyn hospital, two people trying to hold each other together while everything else fell apart. When Imani finally pulled away, her eyes were red, but she had stopped crying. Imani said, "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." Jae-sung nodded. "Anything." Imani took a breath. "Do you regret coming here? Do you regret choosing me over the Samsung deal?" Jae-sung did not hesitate. "No, not for 1 second." Imani searched his face. "You are going to lose everything," Jae-sung said. "I already told you. I would rather have you and nothing else than have everything without you." Imani whispered, "I do not know if I can believe that." And that is when Jae-sung realized what he was really fighting. Not her father, not the distance, not even the grief of watching her mother die. Her fear, the bone-deep terror that had been carved into her by every loss she had ever suffered. The belief that she was not worth staying for, that everyone who said they loved her would eventually leave. Jae-sung said quietly, "Your sister did not leave you by choice. Your father left because he was a coward who could not handle being a real parent. But I am not Amara, and I am not your father. I am here, Imani, and I am not going anywhere, but I cannot make you believe that. You have to choose to trust me." Imani looked at him with tears streaming down her face. Imani asked, her voice breaking, "And if I cannot? What if I am too broken to trust anyone?" And here is where everything changed. Because instead of reassuring her again, instead of promising again that he would stay, Jae-sung did something different. He pulled out his phone. Jae-sung said, "Then I'm going to prove it to you." He dialed a number, put it on speaker. Tae-min answered immediately. "Sir?" Jae-sung said, "I need you to schedule an emergency board meeting, today." Tae-min sounded confused. "Sir, I do not think that is wise given." Jae-sung interrupted, "I am not asking. Schedule it for 2 hours from now. Video conference. Tell them it is mandatory attendance." Tae-min hesitated. "What should I tell them the meeting is about?" Jae-sung looked at Imani. "Tell them I am making a major company announcement. And Tae-min, record it. I want everything documented." He hung up. Imani stared at him. "What are you doing?" Jae-sung said, "I am going to show you that you are worth more to me than Hansol Industries, more than any deal, more than everything I have spent 15 years building." Imani's eyes went wide. "Jae-sung, no, you cannot." Jae-sung said calmly, "Watch me." 2 hours later, Jae-sung was in a private consultation room at the hospital, laptop open, video conference connected to the Hansol Industries boardroom in Seoul. Imani stood behind him, out of frame, watching. 15 board members appeared on screen. They looked angry, impatient. Several were clearly furious about being summoned on such short notice. The board chairman, an older man named Lee Dong-woo, spoke first. "Min Jae-sung, you have exactly 5 minutes to explain why you abandoned the Samsung negotiation and why we should not vote you out as CEO right now." Jae-sung looked directly at the camera. Jae-sung said, "I am going to save you the trouble. I am stepping down as CEO of Hansol Industries, effective immediately." The room erupted. Voices overlapped. "What? Have you lost your mind? This is insane." Chairman Lee held up a hand. Silence fell. Chairman Lee said, "You are stepping down because of a woman." Jae-sung said clearly, "I am stepping down because I have spent 15 years building a company at the expense of everything else. And I am done. I am done prioritizing profit over people. I am done treating relationships as transactions. I am done being the kind of man who measures his worth by his bank account." He paused. Jae-sung continued, I am in love with Imani Okafor, and I choose her. Over Hansol, over the Samsung deal, over every one I have ever made. I choose her, and if that makes me unfit to lead this company, then I was never the leader you needed in the first place. The board was silent, shocked. Chairman Lee said slowly, You understand what you're giving up? Your voting shares, your CEO position, the empire you built from nothing. Jae-sung said, I understand completely. Chairman Lee asked, And you are certain? There is no going back from this. Jae-sung looked back at Imani. She was staring at him with an expression he could not quite read. Jae-sung turned back to the camera. I have never been more certain of anything in my life. Chairman Lee said, Then the board accepts your resignation. We will begin succession planning immediately. Jae-sung nodded. Taemin will facilitate the transition. I will remain available for consultation for the next 30 days. After that, I am done. Chairman Lee said, Very well. This meeting is adjourned. The screen went black. Jae-sung closed the laptop, turned to face Imani. She was standing there, frozen, looking at him like she did not recognize him. Imani said, her voice barely audible, What did you just do? Jae-sung stood, walked over to her. I showed you that you are worth more to me than anything else in this world. Imani shook her head. You just gave up everything. Your company, your life's work. For me. Jae-sung said simply, Yes. Imani's voice rose. Jae-sung, you just threw away 15 years of work, 800 billion won in deals, your entire identity. For what? For someone who cannot even promise you that this is going to work out. Jae-sung took her hands. For someone I love, for someone I want to build a life with. That is worth more than any company. Imani pulled her hands away. She was shaking. You are going to regret this. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow. But one day you are going to wake up and realize what you gave up for me, and you are going to hate me for it. Jae-sung said, That is never going to happen. Imani's voice broke. You do not know that. You cannot know that. And then she said the words that shattered everything. Imani said, I think you should go back to Seoul. I think you should tell the board you made a mistake. I think you should save your company before it is too late. Jae-sung stared at her. What? Imani repeated, tears streaming down her face now. Go back to Seoul. Fix this. Before you destroy your entire life for someone who is not worth it. Jae-sung said, his voice tight with emotion. You are worth it. Imani shook her head. No, I am not. I am broken, Jae-sung. I am damaged. I am someone who watches everyone they love leave or die, and I am not going to let you sacrifice everything you are for someone like me. Jae-sung said desperately, Imani, you are not thinking clearly. You are in grief. You are exhausted. You are... Imani interrupted, her voice suddenly cold. I am thinking more clearly than I have in months. This was a mistake. All of it. Us. I should never have let this happen. I should never have let you in. Jae-sung felt like the ground was falling out from under him. You do not mean that. Imani looked him dead in the eyes. I do. I want you to leave. Go back to Seoul, fix your company, and forget about me. Jae-sung said, I am not leaving you. Not when you are going through this. Imani's voice turned sharp. I do not want you here anymore. I do not need you. I have been taking care of myself my entire life, and I can keep doing it, so just go. Jae-sung stood there, looking at the woman he loved, watching her push him away with everything she had. And he realized she meant it. She was so terrified of losing him that she was pushing him away first, destroying them before he could destroy her. Jae-sung said quietly, If that is what you really want, I will go. But know this, Imani. I love you. I am in love with you. And that does not just disappear because you push me away. I will go back to Seoul if that is what you need. But I am not forgetting about you, and I am not giving up on us. Imani said nothing, just looked away. Jae-sung waited, hoping she would take it back, hoping she would ask him to stay. But she did not, so he left, walked out of that hospital room, out of the building, into the cold New York night, and got on the next flight back to Seoul, alone. Meanwhile, Imani stood in that empty consultation room and felt her heart shatter into pieces. She had just pushed away the only person who had ever chosen her over everything else, had just destroyed the best thing that had ever happened to her, because she was too afraid to believe it could last. Imani sank into the chair, put her head in her hands, and cried until there were no tears left. What she did not know, what she could not possibly know, was that in the waiting room, her father had been standing just outside the consultation room door. He had heard everything, every word, and what he was about to do next would change everything. Did Imani just destroy the only real love she has ever known? Will Jae-sung give up on her? And what is her father about to do? The answers will absolutely wreck you. Part 2 is available right now. Click the link in the description or on the end screen. You are not ready for what happens next.